Thank you very much. Rebecca, we were hoping to take Naomi's because of her time factor, but we appear not to have her now. She's on screen, but she's not responding.
Oh, I am here.
Oh, you are there now. Oh, well done, well done. Right, we will continue. Okay, members, thank you, Naomi. Hang on. We are on, let's get my right order. Item 6, which is on page 74, which is at Thetford. 3PL 2021-1420. So if members are in the right position, over to you, please, for the presentation, Naomi.
Thank you. I will just share my screen. Just bear with me 1 second. Can you see that? Okay, so this application seeks full planning permission for the erection of 5 one-bedroom dwellings on land at the former L Road Day Centre in Thetford. This is the site and the wider context. It is located, as I said, at the former Elm Road Day Centre in Thetford. It is within the settlement boundary for Thetford, and it's located at the edge of a residential area. It's in close proximity to a designated site of special scientific interest, a special protection area, as well as being located within the special protection area Stone Curlew buffer zone. And there you can see it just within the settlement boundary there. And the location plan. And this is the proposed site plan showing the 5 dwellings, which you can see are shown in the terraced style layout with the parking to the south of the site there. And the proposed elevation plans. And the floor plans. Now this is the site looking southeast, and you can see where the existing access is. This is the nearest neighbouring dwelling house to the proposed site. And this is looking south across the site and looking southwest across the site, looking west across the site, and looking north across the site. And you can see the existing residential development in the background, as well as a row of TPO trees, which are on the other side of the road. And back to the location plan. So in terms of the principle of the development, the applicant has indicated in the application submission that the proposed development will be 100% affordable housing. However, in light of it being within the settlement boundary where the principle of residential development is considered acceptable, and given that the development does not fall within the affordable housing threshold of 10 or more dwellings and with a site area of over half a hectare and above, it is not considered necessary to secure the provision of affordable housing via Section 106 agreement or condition in this instance. Given the location of the development within the defined settlement boundary of Thetford, the proposal for residential development is considered acceptable in this instance. In terms of the design, the layout indicates that the dwellings will be a row of terraces comprising 4 two-storey one-bedroom dwellings and 1 single-storey one-bedroom dwelling, all with shared private amenity space to the rear and vehicle cycle parking to the side, with the bin storage to the front of the dwellings. In terms of the design, it is noted that the immediate area is predominantly characterised by terrace-style dwellings, although it is acknowledged that there are a variety of styles in the area, including single-storey, 2-storey dwellings, as well as terraces, detached and semi-detached dwellings. Given the wide range of dwelling types and designs in the area, the proposed design is considered acceptable and consistent with the urban context of the area. The sloping ridgeline further allows for the single-storey development to be stepped to two-storey to suit the character of the street scene. So from a design perspective, it is considered to be compliant with the requirements of Gen 2 and Con 1 of the Breckland Local Plan. In terms of amenity, the proposed development has been designed with amenity considerations in mind, having particular regard to the adjacent bungalow to the east of the site. The building has been stepped down in height, so it does not appear overbearing to the adjacent bungalow, particularly on their private amenity space area. In addition, windows at first floor level on the rear elevation are small roof lights serving landing areas. The private amenity space proposed is small in nature and shared. However, it is accepted that there are lots of designated open spaces within walking distance, which would provide further amenity benefits to any future occupants of the dwellings. And the proposed amenity space is broadly in character with these surrounding neighbouring properties. Overall, it is considered that the proposal is compliant with the requirements of Con 3 of the Breckland Local Plan. In terms of highway safety, the plans show that there's sufficient car parking spaces and secure bicycle storage, as well as visitor parking spaces. The local highway authorities raised no objection to the proposal, subject to the inclusion of conditions. And on that basis, the application is considered to be compliant with the requirements of the NPPF and also policy Con 1M of the Breckland Local Plan. Having regard to the impact on trees that are located near to the site, the Tree and Countryside Officer was consulted on the application and raised no objection to it, subject to the inclusion of conditions with any forthcoming planning approval. The proposal therefore has due regard to policy MV06 of the Breckland Local Plan. And in terms of ecology, given the site's location close to a site of special scientific interest and special protection areas, as well as being within the Stone Curlew buffer zone, the applicant has submitted a preliminary ecological appraisal for consideration. Natural Environment Team and Natural England were consulted on the application. However, to date, no response has been received. Subject to no objections being raised by either consultee, the proposal will be considered to be compliant with ENV02. I have checked my emails today and I haven't received a response from them as yet. In terms of other considerations, there's been no objection from the Contaminated Land Officer, and the site is located in flood zone 1 and at a very low risk of surface or river flooding, so it's considered to have due regard to policy ENV09 in that regard. And overall, the application is recommended for approval subject to condition. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Now we've got Ed Munford Smith and Jake Lambert. Are you both wishing to speak? Just you, sir. Okay, and you have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. Is that okay? Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for bringing our application forward. It's really appreciated. So this is 5 dwellings. It was originally going to be 6 actually, but following pre-app consultation with the planning department, we reduced it to 5 so as to avoid impacting on the neighbouring property. It's 5 self-contained properties, part of the government's commitment to ending street homelessness within the life of the Parliament. Usually our developments take quite a few years. You might remember I was there a couple of years ago with a mixed tenure scheme where we do market housing to fund affordable. In this instance, it's a fast track programme in partnership with the council, where the council is providing land and commuted sum funds. And we're looking from inception, when we first were approached by the council in April of this year, to complete it by October next year. So that's 18 months, which is very fast. I'd just like to thank the planning department, strategic housing and the estates team for their joined up approach. And I hope members are able to support the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's open to questions from members. No. Oh, Councillor Brindle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think there's a good deal of good in this, and it's to be recommended. Unfortunately, when Naomi Minter was speaking, I failed to pick up. Perhaps one of you can clarify for me what the situation with parking cars was. Is the parking spaces provided or not?
Yes, parking is provided to the south of the development. There are 5 spaces, 1 for each dwelling, plus 3 visitor parking spaces. And there's also bicycle storage proposed as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. In the circumstances, as a Thetford member, can I say that I will certainly support this proposal?
Thank you very much. No further questions? Okay, thank you. So for this item at Thetford, 3PL 2021-1420, your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Have we lost someone? 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, it was 10. Okay, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Before these gentlemen go, did anyone notice the address of Broadland Development Services? Oh, you did. Well done, well done. That's why they're being nice to you, because they want to come and visit your offices on a Saturday afternoon. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Merry Christmas to you. Okay, we're going to now move on to where we were meant to be at item 3PL 2021-0629. Just one moment, sir, while we just wipe the tables clean. Thank you. We don't want to send you home with COVID as a present. And what we will have is then Councillor Ben Conway of Yaxon Parish Council, terrific, and John Long and Mike Lloyd, who are the agents, questions only. I'm not sure if they are here, are they, gentlemen? Oh, you are here, getting ready to come up. Chris Sperrin and Ross Jones, who are the applicants. Yes, you're there as well. Good, good. Hannah Wilson and Claire Wooten, who are on Zoom for Anglia Water. We've got them on the, let them in, thank you. And we've got Councillor Ian Martin as well. And I know you're here, sir, because it's been all day. Okay, as soon as we're clear and you're given the go ahead, you can come and take a seat. Oh, Councillor Crane.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to declare a prejudicial interest in this as the applicant is a relative, and I would like to leave the room, please.
Yes, okay, you're leaving the room. Okay. No. It's Christmas. We probably will. Okay, thank you. Well done. Okay, so if you'd like to come and take your seats, please. If you've got you on the list and you don't wish to come or you're not speaking, you can or cannot, whichever you want to do. We've got the various people here, have we, that we need to have? Okay, good. All right, so over to you then, please, Fiona, for the presentation.
Good morning, and this is a full planning application for land off Elm Close, Yaxham. It's also adjacent to Winburn Road for the change of use of land to enable installation of surface water and foul water drainage systems, including surface water detention pond, underground pumping station and associated control kiosk, telemetry equipment, maintenance lighting, hard standing, an enclosure of 1.8 metre brick wall and steel gate, a transmission network of pipes and easements, maintenance, including turning head pursuant to residential planning permissions. So the application site today is that shown on red on the screen, with the referred to residential permission sites in green. So the land in green has 2 outline planning permissions for 42 houses, as well as a reserve matters permission for the 42 houses. And here is how the drainage system would connect into those approved dwellings. And here the application site in dotted black, and you can see it's adjacent and partially within the adopted development boundary for Yaxham. It's also adjacent to the conservation area, which is that pink line. This is Elm Close, looking towards the site. The Elm Close bungalows overlooking the site. This is a hedge that divides the eastern field where the residential development is and the western where a lot of the drainage development would be. And this is the very western boundary with Winborough Road beyond. So the reason why we have this application is because the drainage development necessary to drain the residential permissions was outside of the outline red lines. And if something's outside the red line, we can't control it. We can't ensure it normally happens. So what we had to do at the reserve matter stage, and this was agreed by the planning inspectorate, was get a section 106, which ties together the residential permissions and the drainage development that they are seeking approval for today. This is the reserve matters that was approved at appeal. This was the drainage proposal that they were suggesting with the appeal submission, which was to drain surface water down a Winborough Road drain. However, following discussions with Yaxham Parish Council, they were really not keen on this solution and asked them to look at another solution, which is where we are today. So we continue to have an attenuation basin in the northwest corner of the site. We have a pumping station, which is for both the foul and the surface water. Around the pumping station, there's 1.8 metre high walls, and we have recommended a condition for landscaping to soften those walls. So whilst it's not a particularly visible site from the adopted highway or from any public vantage points, we've still asked for that landscaping just to soften it. This is the attenuation basin. The entire development's been designed in the 1 in 100 year flood event, plus 5% climate change. And you can see just there, there's a little leeway above the 1 in 100 plus 5% climate change event, just in case. So the surface water will go to the attenuation basin, and then it will be taken to a ditch off-site. So it goes through the residential permission, through Elm Close, across the main road and down to St. Peter's Close to a ditch system, which they have evidence leads to the River Tud north of Cutthroat Lane. We have consulted with Anglian Water and the lead local flood authority, and they are not raising objections. In respect of the foul drainage system, the exact design will be agreed later via section agreement with Anglian Water. However, they are showing a proposal that includes a wet well that allows for 24-hour storage of foul water on site. And that's in addition to the storage within the actual pumping station itself. We are recommending approval today, and that is subject to various conditions, which includes lighting to make sure that it doesn't have an ecological impact, a biodiversity plan, landscaping, and we're actually recommending condition of the exact foul water drainage design, just because Anglian Water haven't come back to us on our most recent consultation. However, they are online today to answer questions, and they haven't raised an objection. There are various concerns that have been raised by the parish council in dialogue with myself, which I've tried to answer them. Some of them have been to do with, well, okay, we're discharging this water to a ditch system. How can we ensure that that ditch is actually is clear so that the water can travel down it and prevent floods? So how we're dealing with that is actually under riparian law, where each of the ditch owners have a legal responsibility to keep their ditches clear and prevent flooding upstream of their ditches. And if they don't keep them clear, the lead local flood authority or the courts can ask them to clear the ditches, and they would be responsible for any upstream flooding. And so we are relying on this riparian law, but that is the correct thing to do, and we don't need to add any further conditions or legal agreements because it isn't necessary and it's covered by other law. We are able to recommend approval today, subject to those conditions, but we may need to have discussions about some technical points that you may have concerns about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Martin, would you like to go first or last? Okay, thank you. So we'd go to Councillor Ben Conway of Yaxham Parish Council. Sorry, sir, are you chairman, vice chairman, or a member?
Councillor,
Just a councillor.
yes.
Right, that's fine. Terrific.
Just a lowly councillor.
No, that's fine. You're the ones that push the chairman at the top. It's a lonely place being at the top, don't worry. Okay, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Ben Conway. I'm a member of Yaxham Parish Council and I'm speaking on its behalf. The village of Yaxham is currently some 210 properties. This development is for some 42 homes or a 25% increase. The Parish Council accepts that these have permission to be built. However, one of the major drivers for previously opposing this development was that the existing infrastructure, particularly foul water and surface water drainage, was insufficient for the existing village, let alone a 25% increase. You'll be aware of the sewage and surface water flooding last year, and especially over Christmas and through to February this year. George Freeman MP and our ward councillors championed the issue, and ultimately Yaxham has been included in the first 16 parishes across Norfolk as a flooding priority by Lord Dannett's Norfolk Strategic Flooding Alliance. Anglia Water is the lead agency for seeking to improve matters in Yaxham, and some improvements have been made, but there's a long way to go. This is why getting the surface and foul water from this new development is fundamental. The proposed solutions are an improvement on those previously tabled by the applicant, but the village needs certainty that they will move from nice ideas to reality on the ground. Anglian Water previously said there was sewage capacity for these 42 new homes, but now thankfully accepted that mitigation measures are required, including the capacity to store up to 48 hours of sewage from these new properties in the village system downstream is under strain. Flagship needs to recognise that their existing big estate in Yaxham of St Peter's Close was at the centre of the sewage and flooding last Christmas. It will be their tenants again that will suffer if the foul and surface water drainage from this development is not properly secured. The surface water drainage plan now avoids the Norwich Road flood risk area. The water is to be taken via pipes and ditches for about 1 kilometre all the way to the River Tudd. Discussions have been progressed on both the surface and foul water drainage systems, but nothing is in writing yet. I therefore call upon you to seriously consider this application and associated applications so as to make sure that these new houses, when built, do not make matters even worse in Yaxham. And I'm here today because last year, my colleague up to my right spent Christmas Day and New Year's Day, several hours on the phone, trying to sort out a serious flooding situation that was occurring on the flagship development. That should never, ever happen. 3 houses were flooded and the tenants had to use other toilet facilities over Christmas and New Year in lockdown. That just can't happen again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've just got my officer needs to have an addition, and then I'll go to you, Councillor.
Apologies, I forgot an important aspect to the application today. The surface water discharge to ditches includes going via third-party land. These third-party agreements have started to be discussed but have not been completed. As such, we've agreed with the applicant that they have submitted a non-material amendment application for each of the outlined permissions, and that is to add in an additional condition requiring third-party landowner agreements to be provided to the LPA prior to works beyond garages 30 and 31 of the development, and no other work to take place until those have been provided. And that means that we can ensure that the drainage strategy can be delivered before there's any meaningful work on site. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Martin, please, with your Fagan's gloves on. Very, very topical. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just been a little chilly waiting for this. First off, Mr. Chairman, I'd have to express huge frustration. We had hoped by this stage of the game, when this actually came to decision, that the parish council would be able to give the green light to the proposals and withdraw its standing objection on the grounds that my colleague has just described. The frustration is that this has now come to this committee without all the definitive information. It hasn't got, as far as we're aware, all this information yet on the foul water drainage, and then, but particularly with the surface water drainage. Now, we don't understand why. It's been Flagship's problem. Flagship identified the ways of solving both the foul water and the surface water issues in the summer. And the foul water is pretty well developed, and Anglian Water are pretty well on board on that. However, the surface water, where the discussions with the off-site landowners not just started, they were there in June, July. They were agreed in principle and ready to go. So much so that a number of the farmers actually held off drilling their new crops, so that they were so certain this work was going to go ahead. However, there has been silence from Flagship. Flagship has not pursued this with the off-site landowners, to our knowledge, and as a consequence, you have today an application to essentially to discharge conditions from the outline permissions, which is incomplete. And as a consequence, the officer, Fiona, has worked tremendously to try and make this thing work. And that's where the non-material amendments have been suggested to come in. So if you agree this, nothing happens. We then have to go to the non-material amendments to be discharged, because they are there to discharge what this planning application was to discharge. So I seriously ask, why is it been brought before you today? And I would argue strongly that to be able to have certainty that the good proposals that are on the table are turned into reality, that these have to be agreed before this is agreed. And therefore, I would ask very strongly the committee to consider deferring until the final information is actually provided. It's there to be done. It could have been done by today. And it's hugely frustrating that we're not here actually supporting this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Before I go to questions, I just highlight to members that we have the agent, well, two agents here. We have the applicant as well, and we also have representatives of Anglian Water who are here if you need to direct a question, or if you feel that question needs to be directed to any one of those three parties. So now to start, can I ask if any members are wishing to ask questions at all? Councillor Bowes, Councillor Atwell. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. With reference to what Fiona said about riparian law, I do have reservations about just relying on that to ensure ditches are kept clear. Is there any other mechanism this council can use to ensure this, and can a legal agreement be made with the landowners involved on this specific site? The Norfolk Flood Alliance have said, I believe, that they wish to see these issues addressed through the planning system.
Planning conditions should only be applied when they are necessary. As this is covered by another law, my view is it is not necessary. But if Mike Horn thinks I'm incorrect, that would be useful for him to interject. But otherwise, it's already covered by other law, so there's no need to duplicate.
Okay, well, we have a nod. Just nod. I'll do if you don't want to speak. Oh, he does. He does.
The fact is that in the structure of this planning application, there is a Grampian condition that is going to be included. Once the relevant condition comes up for discharge, we're going to look at the proposals very carefully and see, having taken, I would imagine at that juncture, expert specialist legal advice on drainage matters, we will need to be 100% sure that we are covered Otherwise, there will not be a discharge of the condition. So, Councillor Bowes, that does answer your question insofar as if at that juncture the external legal advice says that riparian law is not sufficient, then we won't discharge the condition.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Atwell, please.
Now, question for Anglian Water. Looking at the correspondence online over the weekend, I think the latest correspondence from the lead local flood authority was 1st of December, and it said that Anglian Water has been reconsulted on the foul drainage scheme. Have there been any progress on that? Have we received confirmation that they are happy with the foul scheme? Could they answer that? And then I've got follow up on the surface water, please.
Yes, that's fine. I think we've got Hannah Hayden from Anglian Water.
Yep. Hi, hope you can hear me. Sorry, I'm trying to turn my video on. Apologies. Yes, we are satisfied with the foul drainage as strategy as proposed. I did email Fiona an update to say that all we'd like really to see is a specific reference to the storage, 24 hours additional storage, but as she's already said, that will be covered by a planning condition, which is absolutely fine. So we are satisfied with the strategy as proposed. We have got so Claire from Anglian Water. Claire, are you happy with my summary, or was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's absolutely fine. An additional 24 hours of storage on top of the pumping station storage is absolutely fine.
Good. Just to let you know, Hannah, as well, that you are on video, so it's a good job you're not in your pajamas. I think we may have another question, so don't run away. Councillor Atwell again, please.
Yeah, so in terms of the surface water, are we restricting the flow into the ditch network? Is that going to be restricted at a certain rate, I presume, with something like a hydro brake system? And in terms of the riparian owners, have we identified how many owners we're talking about? Six owners? Okay. And I suppose my follow-up to that would be to the applicants is why haven't you done the work? What is the reason why you haven't done the conclusive work with those owners before it comes to this committee in terms of getting the necessary agreements in place? Thank you.
Okay, I think there was a question to Anglian Water originally and then to the agents. Oh, Mike's going to answer both those, I think. Mike?
Hello. Yep. I'll answer the question about the surface water in terms of the flows. We're attenuating to Greenfield runoff rate, so we're discharging at 2.5 litres per second into the watercourse. We don't need a hydro brake in this instance because the flow is controlled by the pump itself. So the pump will only pump up 2.5 litres per second at any point. In terms of I think the other question would be directed to Anglian Water.
Yes. What was your first question, Anglian Water one? Oh. Riparian owners. That was, who's answering that one? You, sir?
Well, I think that I'll hand over to Flagship themselves, but I just want to assure members that we haven't been silent. We haven't been not doing things. Things have been going on in the background. Agreements have been discussed. Certain agreements are in place, but I'll hand over to Ross, who'll give you the update on where we are with those agreements.
Thanks, John. In terms of the agreements, we have had made progress, which has been reported. There is an element for achieving some planning certainty and at a point where finances are expended by Flagship in moving forward, instructing solicitors and the like. So we know we have verbal agreements from landowners involved. I've personally met them. We've walked the lengths of the ditches. We've discussed specific issues, but wouldn't actually be included in legal agreements moving forward. As I say, it's a balance of gaining certain planning certainty to release finances to progress with legal agreements.
Councillor Atwell?
Yeah, understand that. Last question from me. In terms of the existing ditch network, is it the plan to excavate that entire ditch network to make sure that that's suitable at the point where you sign all the agreements going forward? Or are you happy the ditch network in its current status is suitable? I would have thought that it'd probably been in your interest to make sure that that was excavated and cleared out properly along its length before you sign on the dotted line. Is that right?
What has been undertaken pursuant to that walk of the ditches is a full measured level survey, and we've had input from relevant drainage engineers to give us some advice as to exactly what the scope of the work needs to entail at each sections of the ditch. There's some that are in better conditions than others. Some need more maintenance in some areas. Down near the river, meeting with the landowner there, that ditch just needs very lightweight maintenance because he keeps it in very good condition for his farming activities. And in other areas, as I say, it does need a little more, but that's been fully scoped and we've took on board what we need to consider in terms of ecology considerations to practically deliver the work. So I think we have, from Flowsheet's perspective, suitable assurances to exactly what we need to do for each individual section, which has been looked at thoroughly.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Gilbert, please.
Thank you, Chairman. As members will know, I have some knowledge of drainage, and that is part of a member of the Watton St Antonio Flood Action Group. As far as riparian ownership issues are concerned, there is a huge gap between legality and reality. How many times have I been out on this? There's one good example where the MP was there and showed him this overgrown ditch. He said, he's going to get a strong letter from me. That ditch is still in the same condition 4 years later. It is very difficult, it seems, or there is an unwillingness to enforce riparian ownership work. And unless there is an agreement in place where the landowner agrees that they will upkeep that ditch to the required standard, then nothing happens if they don't. So I would support the deferment until all these agreements are in place so that the flow down to the RiverTud is sorted out. I can't see why they couldn't sort it out beforehand, and I think these agreements need to be in place before any work starts on that site. So I would propose a deferment until the agreements for the flow to the RiverTud are sorted out.
Thank you, Councillor Atterwell.
Just to clarify then, in terms of the legal agreements that you're going to come to with the riparian owners, will that contain a duty in there to maintain those ditches? I mean, they've already got a duty under riparian rights. So I think I'm hearing that you're going to have a legal agreement with the various owners to discharge into that ditch. So will there be something in that agreement to ensure that they have to maintain that to a certain standard to we can maintain the flow that we need into the RiverTud? Is that in the agreements that you're proposing, please?
Not being obviously the lawyer drafting it, but practically, yeah, there's got to be suitable provisions in there. In terms of what the documents I envisage looking like, there'll be a license for undertaking the initial remedial works. As we said, various parts of the ditch need different extent of maintenance. And further to that, there's then probably deeds of easement to facilitate the specifics that need to be taken on board in terms of future maintenance.
Okay, thank you. Fiona, you want to come back on an item?
Just in response to Councillor Gilbert's point, yes, so the non-material amendments, they will add in those conditions requiring third-party agreement to be reached prior to commencement beyond some works to the garages of 2 dwellings. So that means that we won't have any significant work on site until those agreements have been reached. My views, riparian law means it's not necessary to have any further requirements on the maintenance of the ditch, but that's as far as I can advise. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. No. While we've got our two,
Forgive me,
Well, we've
Mr.
got our
Chairman.
two ladies from Anglian Water. You've been listening to the discussion. Are you happy with what's been spoken about?
So in terms of the surface water, we can't make comment. That's for the lead local flood authority to look at that strategy, etc. Because it doesn't impact our assets, then we don't have jurisdiction to make any specific comments.
Okay, that was a get out of free card that was thrown away. I'm going to indulge you, Councillor Martin, but please don't let me rue the day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I won't. It's more of information. Ross from Flagship has rightly said that there's going to be remedial works. There are remedial works on the ditches because the water cannot currently flow from St. Peter's Close to the Tud. It has to be done, has to be cleared. Why that work and why the agreements have not been done and put in place for the discharge of this application, I do not understand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Yes. Go on, I'll take you, sir.
Flagship fully cognizant of the issues with drainage. And as you've heard, it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation in terms of commitments to progress legal agreements until we have some certainty over the consent for the drainage scheme. Now, we're fully aware of the comments that have been raised by the parish council in terms of how do we prove the certainty, and that's why we proposed this condition, which will effectively give full control to the authority. We will have to demonstrate to you, the local authority, that we have a full agreements in place before any development on the site occurs. We've also got a legal agreement with the authority. There's an obligation on us to provide details of the maintenance as well. So you as the authority are covered. We can't progress work on site until you, the authority, are comfortable that the legal agreements are in place regarding the rights to use the drainage system. And you've got the ability as well through the section 106 to sign off the maintenance agreement when we provided it. So you have control.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I was basically going to say what John's said. So just to be really clear, members, land ownership is not a material planning consideration. However, our officers have worked tirelessly with the agents to get the non-material amendments in, so that you as members have got the confidence that those works on the housing will not take place without the drainage solution being properly in place and those land ownership agreements being in place. So those conditions will protect that development from taking place without the drainage process going into account. But in terms of the determination of the application, you can only take into consideration the merits of the system itself, and your statutory consultees, being Anglian Water, who are here today, and the lead local authority, don't object to the merits of that application. So you need to take that into account. With regards to the riparian, I completely agree with you, members, as you know from my own personal experience, how concerning that is. But I would remind you that you cannot use the planning legislation to overwrite or overrule other legislation. And therefore, that is the legislation. There is a means of enforcement. There is a complaints procedure and a means of enforcement through the local flood authority. However dissatisfied and concerning we may have been in other locations, but that is, in the same way as enforcement, that is the process to ensure those riparian rights are followed. So members, you are unable to cross planning law over the top of those riparian rights. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks very much for that, Rebecca, because I had written down here that, you know, it's like, I don't know, making a cake. We've got legal agreements. We're not going to add any more ingredients to our cake until we've got that sorted, at which we can then add the drainage systems. And once they're all done and we're all happy that that cake is proceeding and whipped up nicely, we will then go to the development. So we're going to end up we can only do it in 1, 2, and 3. We cannot start on number 2 or number 3 until number 1 is in place, and we can't start number 2 until 1 is in place. So it's fairly clear cut. It's all been secured, but there are concerns and concerns raised, obviously, by our ward member and our parish councillor. And I think the shout has gone out that this has got to be handled very carefully and obviously possibly, don't want to teach you how to suck eggs, but possibly a little bit more contact with the local Indians and whatever they are, chiefs, Indians, cowboys. Anyway, the other brigade. Okay, so I think we've progressed this enough. So we're going to go to a vote on this item at Yaxham 3PL 2021 0629, and your recommendation from your officers is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's unanimous. Okay, that's approved. Okay, gentlemen, and thanks, Anglian Water. Come and see us sometime when we've done away with masks. We do like to have you in the room if possible. Thanks, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on. We'll wipe down a few desks. Oh, yes. And someone give Councillor Crane a shout, because I can see brown bags out there and she'll be eating bits out of every bag. I know what she's like. So we're moving on to Hardingham, 3PL 2021 1362. Who's doing? Oh, well done, Chris. Chris is just going to do the desk, and so's Becky. And we've got Anthony Denny, who's an objector. All right, if you just hold there, so we're just cleaning the desk. I'm just getting you ready. You all right? Don't go back, because we'd lose you. We've got Gary Pearce, who's the agent. No. Gary Pearce. He might be in the other room. And we've still got Councillor Martin. Gary, come in. We'll just wipe the desk down, then you can take a seat and we'll continue with the presentation. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. If you take a seat. Okay, got Councillor Crane back in the room. You didn't eat all the lunch, did you? Oh, good. Okay. Okay, and okay, everything okay? We're ready to go? Okay, Becky, can you just go outside, and whoever's out there go, shh, the chairman said so. Okay, not you, just say the chairman said shh. If you're going to have a party, cheese and wine, stuff like that, then go somewhere else. Okay, thank you. I'm going to, on the Hardingham issue, I'm going to hand you over to our officer, and it's over to you, please, Lisa, for the presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. The application seeks full permission for a proposed dwelling and garage in Hardingham on land adjacent to Plough Lane and High Common. This is the site highlighted in yellow here. Hardingham is a village without a boundary, where policy HAL 5 allows for some development in these areas where it comprises of sensitive infilling and rounding off. This is the site layout here. And as you can see, there's dwellings on both shared neighbouring boundaries, and on this basis, the proposal is considered to be sensitive infill. The proposed design is sympathetic to the adjacent road fronting dwelling. The existing dwelling is on the top left with the proposed dwelling top right, but the other way around on the bottom. The bottom street scene is the Plough Lane street scene. So the frontage is the Hingham Road street scene. Given the plot size, the dwelling's positioning with ample separation distances between the dwelling and the neighbouring properties, there are not considered to be significant neighbour amenity issues arising from the development. None of the statutory consultees have raised any objections subject to condition, and it's on that basis, the fact that we consider it sustainable and compliant with Policy House 5, that we're recommending approval. And this is the site frontage. That's the adjoining dwelling along Plough Lane, the site itself. That's me done. Sorry.
Sorry, that's fine. Okay, we've got Councillor Mark, would you like to go first or last? Okay, thank you. I've got Anthony Denny, please, who's an objector. You have 3 minutes, sir. Make sure your mic's on and you can go.
Mr. Chairman, I am the immediate neighbour to this proposed development, and I continue to object to the proposed dwelling on the grounds of size, sensitive infilling, access to services, and the fact that there is no identified need for additional housing in this village. While we acknowledge the House 05 applicability to Hardingham, I urge the committee to consider whether this infill development is truly sensitive, as House 05 requires, in a village with already only limited access to facilities and services. Furthermore, if this rounding off of a cluster of dwellings is acceptable, it can equally be argued that previous applications would now be that have been rejected would now be acceptable, as should any future proposed dwelling on the north side of the cricket pitch on High Common, as this also could be deemed as infilling and rounding off. The size of the proposal remains unacceptable. While designed to be of similar size to the property to the south of it on High Common, it fails to allow for the fact that this southerly property was designed as 3 dwellings, including the dogleg south-facing side. Today it is still 2 dwellings, which leaves these dwellings as considerably smaller in overall proportion compared to the proposal. We also note, after our objection on right to light grounds, that the dense woodland opposite the western side of the proposal has been extensively cut back by the applicant subsequent to our written objection being submitted. Finally, and crucially, I question why the District Council is considering the approval of a completely new dwelling in a village noted for its small size and rurality. There is no identified need for this additional housing in Hardingham. There are, within 2 neighbouring Breckland district areas alone, Attleborough and Great Ellingham, a minimum of 4,153 new dwellings in development, to say nothing of the developments around Hingham. So there is no need for additional dwellings in Hardingham. And as I understand that this property is being developed for the private rental market, it is, judging by its size, at a standard arguably above the threshold for the provision of affordable rentable housing, particularly in this area traditionally known for below average income levels. And this is why we object to this planning proposal and we ask you to refuse it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got Gary Pearce. Are you having 3 minutes, sir? Yes, fine. Microphone on and you're away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just say that the property does comply with HOU 5 and works well with the existing streetscape. It fits the site well, creates a good south-facing garden and takes its scale, proportion and size from the adjacent properties, not just to the south and to the west, but also the properties on the corner of High Common, the other side of the cricket ground, where it takes its architectural cues from. So I think it creates a positive contribution to Hardingham, and I support Lisa's recommendation for approval, obviously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Martin, please. 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. The parish council asked me to make these points. The heart of the application is a balance of judgment. Hardingham is a small village without a settlement boundary, and therefore, as has been mentioned, HOU 05 is applicable. The proposed plot has been rented out to neighbouring properties on and off for many decades as a garden, so it's not been built on or developed previously. On the face of it, the application would meet the definition of infill, but the issue then is whether the scale and massing of this large property can be considered to be sensitive infill, and whether it therefore meets the HOU 05 criteria or other criteria. Criterion 2 is whether it's of appropriate scale and design to the settlement. The parish council has indicated it does not object to the development in principle on this site, and neither does the immediate neighbour, but you have heard from. But the scale is not appropriate. Criterion 3 requires the design to contribute to enhancing the historic nature of communities, which again, the parish council and neighbours contend that it doesn't. This is because of the site's highly sensitive location on the edge of the playing field, which forms the centre of the village, and the surrounding area is heavily wooded. Criterion 4 is not applicable in this instance. So both the parish council and the immediate neighbour are united in challenging whether the scale and massing of the proposed property is appropriate to this sensitive site, and state that this is important to be considered. It is therefore for the planning commission to weigh these factors and respect the local contention, and therefore refuse this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. It's open to questions from members, and I've got Councillor Gilbert with his hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. We've heard from two people. One says that it is appropriate scale and fits in nicely with the surrounding properties. And we've heard another one which says it's oversized and much too big. I haven't actually seen how tall either of these buildings are. So can we have some idea of what we are actually comparing it with?
Well, there was a street scene presentation, which we'll get up again, which shows
show
you
very much, did it?
Oh, well, yeah, I thought it was quite good, but anyway. The existing one is on the top street scene is there on the left, and the one on the right is the proposed property.
That wasn't made clear in the presentation. I don't think.
I thought it did. And on the bottom one, it shows the side elevation and the existing sort of 1970s, 1980s semi-detached dwelling, which is down the back of it, but sort of facing onto the green. Whereas sorry, sir, are you in the one to the left there? Yeah. That's your property. So this gentleman's property is on the street, and the other one is on the one facing the green.
Ah, right. So sorry for my confusion.
No, not at all. No. That's what questions are about.
Because my first reaction was, are they false chimneys? And anyway, it looks to me as though the proposed dwelling is actually lower than the existing.
No, I think it's slightly higher. It's slightly higher, but
take the chimneys into account.
Oh well, measuring chimneys. There's a lot of
okay, that question has been answered. Thank you.
Okay, did you want to see the photos? Because there's existing.
Yes, there's photos.
Oh, well, if you just scroll them on existing photos.
So we're all clear then.
Yes, I don't want anyone to vote unless they're sure of what the presentation shows. So that just go back. That's the existing dwelling, and just slightly further down the road. And this corner shows where the plot is, and you can see that's the existing dwelling. So this is sort of like a garden plot.
That doesn't show any sort of comparison of scale, though. But the
it
drawings
doesn't, but
did.
it shows
the drawings did.
Shows where the dwelling's going to be, and just go back to that one you had, and there at the back you can see this is the green, and this is the 70s sort of semi-detached block a bit further down. Okay.
Yeah, I'm
terrific.
happy now. Thank you.
I've not been there, but I've seen it through Chairman's briefing, and I've watched it through Chairman's panel, so we've been there a few times. Sorry? Oh, turn your microphone off, please, Councillor Gilbert. Anyone else wishing to ask questions? Oh, Councillor Atwell, then Councillor Kybird. Thank you.
I'll go on. A quick question for me. The existing dwelling, which we saw on the left of that plan, Is that listed? How old is that?
I don't know how old it is, but it's not listed. Oh,
Any idea of the age, Sharon, if it's listed?
It's not listed, but the age is from an heritage brickwork person says that it's late 18th century.
Councillor Kyber.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this hinges entirely as to whether this is sensitive infill, and I have to say that based on the street scenes presented, I think it is fitting for that street scene.
Thank you. Okay, no further questions. I'm going to go to the vote on this item. So, sorry, my page just went off. So with regards to Hardingham, 3PL 2021-1362, your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands for approval? Okay, and that's unanimous. Okay, so this item's approved. Thank you. We're now going to move on to item 5. We'll just be wiping down. And 3PL 2021-1128 at Winborough and Westfield. And we've got Councillor Mark Hansel from the Winborough and Westfield Parish Council. If you just hold on a moment, sir, while we wipe down. And we've got Councillor Martin in the chair yet again. It's the Councillor Martin show. The Councillor Martin show. There we're thinking the same. Martin's laughing. No, I don't think it's very funny, but good. Right. And we have the lovely Lisa again. No, you're okay. Stay there. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Lisa, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So the application seeks to demolish a redundant agricultural barn and the erection of 1 2-storey 4-bed dwelling and 1 2-bedroom single-storey property. This is the site highlighted in yellow here. This is the proposed site layout. Plot 2, which is to the north there, is the single-storey dwelling, with plot 1 to the south being the 2-storey. These are the proposed elevations. And the floor plan for the 2-storey dwelling, which is plot 1, and the floor plan of the single-storey dwelling, plot 2. This is the site plan for the previously approved Class Q scheme on the site for 4 dwellings, which I'll come on to, and the floor plans for those, and some photographs here of the front elevation of the existing building. So the proposal seeks to demolish this barn and erect 2 dwellings. The site and the barn has an extant Class Q permission approval for the conversion into 4 dwellings. And it's on this basis that we consider the site to have a viable fallback position where the principle of development has been accepted for residential development. The design of the Class Q approval is considered to be a betterment to that of the existing agricultural barn. And therefore the character and appearance of the area is considered to be improved as a result of this scheme. The public rights of way team and ramblers have objected to the proposal. They were unsure if the proposal would impact on the footpath which runs along the site frontage. However, we have had a plan submitted subsequently, which shows the footpath in hatched green there, shows the parking and development clear of that footpath. And again, material consideration has to be given to the previously approved Class Q approval for 4. The public rights of way team were offered a chance to comment on this revised scheme, but we haven't had any further comments from them. A preliminary ecological appraisal was submitted during the course of the application process that concludes that no further surveys are required, nor will the proposal impact on any designated sites. However, we're still awaiting their formal final comments on that basis. but all other statutory consultees have raised no objection subject to condition. The parish council have raised various concerns and objections, and these are covered within the main officer assessment. The main points being non-compliance with HAL 5. However, we've established that there is a fallback position as a result of the Class Q permission. Contamination, we've added a condition in respect of contamination, and an element of site clearance which has already taken place. Again, site clearance can take place without planning permission. The trees on site weren't subject to any protection orders, and neither is the site within a conservation area. So that, again, that wasn't considered a material planning consideration. And highway conditions have been imposed. So in respect of the previous Class Q approval, the fact that this scheme in character and appearance terms is considered an improvement, we are recommending approval.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. First or last, sir? Okay, thank you. So we've got Councillor Mark Hansell. Can I just ask if you're chairman, vice chairman, or just one of our lovely, hard-working, lowly parish? Sorry, sir? No, that's fine. No, we welcome you here. You have 3 minutes, sir.
I'm speaking on behalf of Wimber and Westfield Parish Council, who strongly object to this planning application and feel that it should be refused. The planning committee should be asking itself what is going on with this planning application, including the previous one for this property and the serious ramifications if this approval goes through. The recommendations of the planning officer give the appearance to the parish council of circumventing the planning rules, certainly in spirit. Schedule Q barn conversion was recommended by the officer for this barn, despite it being accepted that a barn should be converted without new or reinforcing structure or substantial rebuilding. As you can see, the barn is mostly asbestos, and I asked for some pictures to be shown at this point, and they haven't been shown. And I think that's deliberate. As you can see, the barn is mostly asbestos with a small amount of galvanized steel, yet permission was given for a conversion using hardly any of the original structure remaining. When the developer decided he didn't want to keep any of the original barn at all, the planning officer recommended approving the application for it to be knocked down and replaced with a total new build of 2 houses. This new build would be outside of the settlement boundary and not aligned with the local plan. This is likely to create a precedent if this application goes through. It is now up to you, the planning committee. You are here to provide checks and balances on the planning officer's recommendations and to form planning policy. If you grant planning permission to this application, you will have set a precedent and you will have effectively and legally ripped up the local plan which you have spent so much time and money creating. And furthermore, you and the officers will have lost all integrity and credibility. Wimber and Westfield Parish Council believe that if permission had been sought from the outset for this, it would have been refused. This effectively means that Brecklin would be given permission for a new build outside the settlement boundary. It cannot even be claimed that your hands have been tied by the government guidelines to facilitate more housing, as by approving this application, you will reduce 4 units of housing to 2 units of housing. Finally, I ask you respectfully, please do not sacrifice your integrity and the local plan over this application.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm speaking against this application because it does actually conflict with all the relevant local plan policies. If it doesn't comply, obviously, with HOU 05 because it's part of a sporadic small group of dwellings lying in the open countryside. It doesn't come within HOU 11 because it isn't residential replacement, or HOU 12 because it's not a conversion of an existing building in the countryside. Nor have they even tried to actually designate it as HOU 13 for rural workers' dwellings. The officer report nonetheless recommends permission, and this is on the basis of the concept of fallback. And I have to say thank you to officer guidance and reference within the report to actually point me in the direction of the case law as to which this applies. I'm no expert, but there are two things that stand out from having read up on now a number of these cases. Is that first, there has to be a real rather than a theoretical prospect that the Class Q development could proceed if the current application is refused. Second, that each fallback case tends to be very fact specific. So it is not a general rule that just because there's a potential Class Q permission or rights in the background, that that actually acts as an automatic fallback. It is therefore considered by the courts that the role of planning judgment, i.e. your good selves, is vital in determining whether or not fallback is applicable in these circumstances. I have no doubt that the officer is not being unreasonable in coming down in favour of applying fallback in this case. However, because it is a planning judgment, it is perfectly reasonable for your good selves to take a different view. In this case, there is a real question as to whether there is any prospect that the previous Class Q prior approval scheme would actually go ahead. It is not the style or the way that this developer has operated with the other barns within this location. All of them have ended up with actually rather nice looking buildings, but not based on Class Q. In this instance, you've actually got to demolish and remove, and that's where they're trying to rely on fallback. So there is no certainty, and in fact, there's big question marks over where the developer would actually go with the existing permission. I therefore ask you to refuse this application because it does not comply in any way with the local plan policies, and it is perfectly reasonable in the circumstances of this application to discount the use of the concept of fallback to the Class Q development. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca, are you wishing to come in now?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chairman. So I'm just going to take a minute to tell members how to suck eggs, but obviously members, you need to determine applications in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. We've heard from Councillor Martin and the Parish Council, who are absolutely correct that this development wouldn't comply with the local plan policies, and Councillor Martin's kindly listed them for me. And therefore, it's a non-compliance with policy unless material considerations indicate otherwise. All case law appeals are all material planning considerations in the determination of applications. You've got the case law set out in front of you in the report. Councillor Martin has summarised it really well for you. And this is an established principle now that's been established in the Court of Appeal, whereby fallback is a material planning consideration. And it is absolutely correct that the Lord Justice said there must be a real prospect of a development coming forward. And this is set out under paragraph 1.3 of your report. So he stated it does not have to be probable or likely, a possibility will suffice. And this will always be a matter for the decision maker's planning judgment. So as Councillor Martin's clearly set out for you, this is a matter of planning judgment as to whether there's a real prospect of development coming forward. And in the case as set out in the report, it was felt that there was real prospect of the development coming forward, given that there was time on the permission for it to come in the same as this instance, and that there was a willingness for the developer to bring that forward. So members, in the determination of the application, you must take into account this fallback position as an other material consideration, and you must determine for yourself as a matter of planning judgment whether there's real prospect for this development to come forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. It's open to questions from members. Councillor Wilkinson and then Councillor Brindle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we had the photograph of the barn looking to the left, was that a corner of a residential property next door?
Yeah, so properties along Church Road are all converted barns, sort of traditional farmhouses. So, but the single story plot is on that neighbouring boundary.
the two proposed residents, is that going to be cover the whole footprint of the barn? It's going to be inside that, is it, or just on the edge, or is it going to cover it?
It won't utilise the same footprint, but it will be within the same red line area as the previous consent.
Councillor Brindle, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a little bit of a help, please, with the actual scale of the development. Is this, in terms of surface area for land area coverage, much larger than the existing barn, about the same size, much higher than the existing barn, about the same height, please?
In terms of footprint, it will be slightly larger, I think. In terms of scale, it will be a similar, I don't know exact heights, but it will be comparable to existing development along Church Road. I don't want to surmise, I don't have exact heights to give you, I'm afraid, in terms of measurements, but it will be comparable to those in the area, and one of the plots will be single story as well.
Okay, Councillor Kybird, please.
Thank you, Chairman. In terms of the current Class Q approval, do we have any elevations of what that development would look like if that went ahead? And are we allowed to?
I'm not sure if it's totally relevant because that's not the application that's before you.
Right, but
All right, I don't want to.
But presumably we can express planning judgment on the likelihood of that being built.
You don't have them here, do you? Okay, if we can share a screen, we'll get them for you, but I didn't think we would have them, that was all. Can we move on to Councillor Atwell while we're organising that, please?
Yes, Chairman. Can I just take a step back? If this development, if this application is refused, the fallback position is that the existing barn would be redeveloped. Has that got, that's got permission to be converted into housing anyway? Yeah, because that's god awful ugly what's there at the moment. So I suspect that trying to convert that is probably not going to look too.
Okay, well, if it's possible to get it up, we will, but it wasn't. I mean, you're the members, you can request it. It's just not what we're considering today. That's what I would always have thrown at me.
Well,
actually, yes, I would normally throw it at you, but I do think it's a fair point, because what we're trying to do here is to reach a value judgment on planning. It's a planning judgment, and I therefore think that it is a perfectly reasonable and relevant and material consideration. On the one hand, what is the possibility of the Class Q coming forward? But B, if it did, what would it look like? So actually, on this occasion, I think it's fair enough.
Okay, and there it is, gentlemen, on your screen. So that's the conversion of the buildings that you saw, which was sort of like an ATCO. Yes, sir. Councillor Atwell.
I can't see it too closely because my old eyes aren't too good at getting in my old age. But what type of materials? That's what I'm driving at.
Oh, I see.
The proposed application we've got before us today is traditional brick and pan tile by the looks of it. And this is that clad? Is that metal clad, or is that?
Lisa?
They wanted to utilise a lot of the existing building and sheeting. Yeah. So just bear with me, I can check on the app.
Chairman, can I just come in?
Yes, please do.
So in order to accord with the Part Q, Councillor Atterwell, then it has to be a conversion of the existing building. So largely the external elevations will be as per the materials on the existing building, because it needs to be that to comply with the requirements of Part Q. So it will be that metal sheeting and block work.
Councillor Atwell.
Well, I'm sure I read somewhere on the application before us that that's asbestos sheeting that's there at the moment. That's not metal sheeting. if that's asbestos sheeting, as Robert said, they wouldn't allow it. That would have to all come down anyway for safety reasons.
Becky?
Again, that's not a material planning consideration, that's a matter for building regulations. But just for your information, if the asbestos isn't disturbed, it can stay in situ. It doesn't need to be removed from the building. It can be covered up internally and then it can stay in situ.
See, asbestos is fine as long as you don't lick it. Okay, well, can we just share the screen, please, and show the application? There was an outline drawing. The new application, not this old one. I don't want to know about agricultural buildings. I want to see a barn. So you've had a good picture in your mind of the conversion of the asbestos building. And if we can get the picture of there was a drawing type thing. Someone, please. There we go. So that's the other option. That's the option that's been put before you today. And well, yes, it will be built in brick form to resemble a standard barn type conversion, and it sits sort of almost on that corner. So that's your two options. You've got that one, or you've got the old asbestos building, which what they might do, they might not even do it. We don't know. They might not even do it.
When does the permission expire on the Class Q?
Oh, date time on that Class Q. No, I'm going to suspend. I should probably get told off by my solicitor later, but the gentleman is very aggravated and wanted to ask a question. Ask a question. I don't need a statement, sir, but if you put your microphone on, I'll accept a question from you.
Surely it's not the issue of a beauty contest. It's whether it should be given planning permission. And also, if it's mainly asbestos, nobody is going to want to rent it or live there. And certainly this developer has developed 11 properties already in the village, and he wouldn't be going along those lines if it's not commercially viable. He's very experienced.
Okay, thank you. I didn't suggest it was a beauty contest. What I wanted, the members asked to see the Q application, which they've seen, which I didn't want to get down that road, but I've allowed that, which has caused enough confusion. And I wanted them to compare with what would possibly be done if we didn't have the application and what the application is that's before them now. So that's what I wanted them to not have a beauty competition, but to understand what we've gone back to. Okay, and there were a few statements that are not what would be of consideration to us today, but thank you anyway, as long as you're satisfied. Any more questions before we move on? No, good. Thank goodness for that. Sorry.
Chairman.
Expiry date?
Oh, expiry date. Yes, thank you.
They have until the 2nd of December 2023 to complete the development.
Rebecca, were you wanted to come in?
Chairman, I was going to say the same thing as Fiona said. Councillor Attwell asked for the expiry date, which Fiona's just highlighted.
Okay, been answered. Thank you. So with this item for Winborough and Westfield, application 3PL 2021-1128, your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands for approval, please? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And those against? 1. 9-1. This item is approved. Thank you. Thank you for your time, gentlemen. Okay, we're moving on to item 11. I believe this is you, Rebecca, is it?
Yeah, I've got something, the infrastructure report.
Okay, if you'd like to deliver that now.
Yes, so I'd like to make members aware that it is a legal requirement under the SIL regulations 2010 for the local planning authority to publish an annual infrastructure funding statement on its website no later than the 31st of December in each calendar year. This looks at the items set out in paragraph 1.4 of the report. It details that in the financial year 2020 to 2021, the council received 523,196.77 in payments relating to Section 106 agreements. And in the same period, the council entered into agreements to provide 10 on-site open space areas, 228 affordable housing units, we provided 57 affordable units and it allocated £412,000 plus. We would ask you for the note to note the contents of the report, which will be published on the website. And if you have any questions, can you please direct them to Simon Wood and he will respond back directly. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Why can't they direct questions at you? That was
You
a
can
get
try.
out.
You
I
can
don't wanna
try.
know- I'm going to deliver the report, but I don't want to know anything about it. So I can't say any questions, members, but did you have a basic question that we might be able to answer? No. Yes, Councillor Attwell has.
Just a quick one. We provided 228 affordable housing units. How does that compare to our actual requirement as a district?
You're asking, are we short of the mark? Yes. Do we have that figure or is it directed to Simon Wood?
No, so the infrastructure report reports on what we have done, not what our targets are to be, but I'm sure we can get you that information, Councillor Attwell.
Yes, if you could, because he would love that as a Christmas present. Okay, so we're going to move on. Our next item, item 12, are applications determined by Executive Director of Place for your information. And item 3 is the appeal summary for your information also. At that point, I'm going to close the meeting.
Chairman, the appeal that was allowed on grounds F and G.
That for your information, I'm not going to discuss
No,
appeals.
but they
at this-
don't tell us what grounds F and G were. So.
Okay, I'm not going to discuss them. That's not, that's just for your information. You can take it up with the relevant officers. Okay, with that, I close the meeting. I wait for the recording. If you could all stay seated.